Hey, I'm Maluka, and in this video, I'll be making Tansy from Palworld. Palworld is basically Pokemon, but with guns. This is Tansy. The character I'll be making is a monkey with a gun, and I think that's pretty cool. I'll start with a fresh roll of wood filament that I'll carefully open. This will be a big project, so I'll start out with a lot of filament. To copy the template, I just use tracing paper. You can use glass or anything clear, and to keep it from moving, I just use regular tape. I'm somewhat of a coke addict and I didn't have a lot left, so we'll see how long this little bit lasts for. Now the hard part is making a frame. Making a good frame takes a long time and unfortunately I'm very lazy. I should clarify, I really only have this problem when it comes to characters. I can make a gun or a flower no problem. Now a monkey with a gun, that's hard, and this is why I made it. This frame is the foundation of the character, and if I get this frame wrong, the character will be off, and I did it wrong. I switched out the papers to the side profile. Front, back, and side profiles of your objects make it easier to make them, so always try to find a 3D model, especially if you're making a character. I found this model on the internet, and since I'm making it with my 3D pen, I don't have to pay to print it. I can just do it manually with days of extra work, which is technically cheaper, so I win. This step is the most important and I failed miserably. I'll explain later, but this is taking your object from 2D to 3D. For now, the frame is done and this is where I run out of my Diet Coke. Not happy about it. Next step, of course, was filling in the frame. Once the frame was lightly filled in, I used a lighter to bend the arms into a pose. This should be done before you completely fill it in. I planned on making the gun, so this step was important. This is where not making a correct frame comes into play. 1, I didn't make enough side pieces. 2, I didn't fill the frame in thick enough so the filament is falling in. This creates gaps and you have to fix these later. But I did get it done and this kinda looks like a turkey. Next up is my favorite part, which is smoothing, and this tool I'm using is a Clover mini iron. It's usually used for fabric, but it's really big and gets the job done incredibly quick. Sanding was next, and I couldn't use my Dremel because I didn't have the bit, so I decided to make my own sandpaper sticks with some sandpaper, pincers, and carpet tape. I made the different grits, and it's time to sand. I seriously underestimated how long this was going to take. I had to take a break in 20 minutes because my hands were so sore, they were red, and my fingers were cramping up. Contemplating buying the Dremel bits. A few hours later, and I had a pretty smooth head with a lot of holes, but that can be fixed easily. Look how it looks compared to the unsanded body. Literally night and day. Once I sanded the body, you can notice some imperfections caused by my failure to make a proper frame. Now, I have to fix it. To fix it, I just went back over it with my Clover mini iron, then filled in all the gaps, then smoothed them down again. Looks as good as used. It was time to make the details of the face, and I still didn't know if I was going to make the mouth open or just draw the mouth on at that point, but from the thumbnail, you know, I did in fact open up the mouth and it looks really nice. The first ear I made was perfect, and the second ear looked a bit off, but it's because I didn't flip the picture when I copied it, so I only had the left ear for the template. You can definitely see the difference. The rest of the details were the nose, the hair on his chest, arms, and legs, which are missing from the final project because I forgot to add them on. Oh, and I also made the tail. For some reason, I only added the nose and the chest hair on. I saved everything else for later. Why? I genuinely have no clue what goes on with my brain while I'm working on this stuff. The feet were next, and it took me months to make this, so when I got to the feet, I was a little over this project, so they may or may not be the same size. I also don't have footage of me making them, but I pretty much just filled this in. Since the feet were the last thing I made, I started smoothing out the nose. I had a photo of Tansy on my iPad while I worked on this, and it didn't help, so I just went for something that kinda looked like a monkey. I normally don't use the small soldering iron to smooth things out, especially not detailed facial features, but it didn't turn out horrible, so +1 for the confidence. I made the stomach the wrong way, but here's me realizing I made a mistake. I was supposed to make a ring around the stomach, not stack filament on top of it. Don't know how I made that mistake. The last piece to be smoothed out was his hair, then once everything was done, it was now time to rip his head apart. This was when I decided to open up the mouth because I already had to make holes for the eyes, so why not? Speaking of the eyes, oh my god, I wanted to die. I'd never been more frustrated a day in my life. There are the sole reason this took this long. I was putting gel on my nails and went, that's the perfect circle, and I put it in, and it worked, and it gave me 2 perfect circle eye holes, and I went, how do I get the eyes to be perfect too? I basically sat them on top of this and went over it with my Clover mini iron, and it worked. Only if I figured this out days before. I also made the tongue piece completely separate so it looks like it's sticking out, and I think it looks pretty cool. This is the face after days of work. I was tired, but also really proud. I also had the bright idea to paint the tongue before I put it in because I suck at painting and I know I'd mess it up, and it didn't work, so let's skip this. I secured the eyes and the mouth with filament. I ended up needing to open up the head later because the eyes got pushed in. I should have added way more filament here. Don't make the same mistake I did. Add more filament, save yourself some headache. Looking good, now I can put it back together and add the rest of the details to Fred. Yes, I will now be calling Tansy Fred. Why? Because I can, and you can't stop me. Fred got his ears put on, followed by his tail, and then his hair, then finally his feet, which may or may not be the same size. I'm not gonna confirm. Fred needs hands, but before Fred gets his hands, I need to make his gun first, because his hands will wrap around the gun. I originally wanted the gun to be really nice, but this project dragged on for so long, I would have been happy if someone looked at it and said, hey, that kinda looks like a gun. I did add some detail, nothing crazy though. You can see there's no trigger, and that's because there's no space for one, but if I didn't say anything, would you have noticed? Probably because it's a gun, and guns do have triggers. But it does look nice, so give me a little credit. Fred finally gets his hands, and I kept it super simple, 5 lines stacked with filament, and then I smoothed it out. This is my second time making hands, and I think I've improved. I put the hands on as a test, and I realized Fred couldn't hold his gun, and Fred's an American. I needed to fix this immediately. A little bit of melting, and a little bit of pulling, and I'm done. I did the same thing to wrap his fingers around the gun. Remember the nice blue mat I started the video with? Well, I ruined it and covered it up with the cutting mat. I sanded this project like 10 times in total and it didn't stand a chance. I sprayed everything with the primer filler, and of course I didn't spray the back of the gun because who's gonna see it? That's extra work. I did sand this again, and this is how the mouth turned out after. I have no idea why I thought this would work. Remember when I said I had to open up his head again to fix his eyes? Well, I also had to fix his tail and fix his left hand, and you can't even tell. Next I was painting, and I absolutely suck at painting if you know nothing else about me. To make sure you stay smooth, I added some paint thinner to all the paint. While I was painting, I was looking at a photo of him and still messed up. That's supposed to be tan. I just hope the tan paint is thick enough so I don't have to do 1,000 coats to cover that up. Wrong. This paint was incredibly watery. It had some black stuff at the bottom of the bottle, so I just shook it up and hoped for the best. So I did in fact have to use 1,000 coats of tan to cover up that little bit of green, and it sucked. I used bubblegum pink for the tongue and went on surprisingly easy in just 1 coat. I painted the hair and the tip of the tail in this blue, and it took at least 3 coats. I don't even want to talk about the yellow. My enemy's eyes were next, but I came prepared with paint pens. This turned out bad even though I used a pen, but it would have been 10 times worse if I had used a paintbrush, I promise you. And to fix the crappy lines, I just used a white paint pen. The last steps were to color the eyes, first with a light blue, and then I went over that with a darker blue. This looks amazing and I'm really proud. I also didn't record myself painting the gun, but here it is, and together, it looks great. Fred was done, and I could have not made this last year. This journey to improve my 3D pen skills will only make me better. I have more things planned. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.